Hello guys, welcome to another class of Vidhai. This video is brought to you by the Exams Possible team of Vidhai. Exams Vidhai is a non-profit initiative by the students of IIITDM Kancheepuram to give free coaching and resources to students preparing for national level examinations. Today, we will be learning about an important and interesting concept called direction sense. Now let us move on to the contents of this chapter. In this chapter, we will be learning about an introduction to direction sense, an important theorem called Pythagoras Theorem. We will be learning about clockwise and anti-clockwise sense, and in the end, we will learn about the concept of shadows. So the first topic, direction sense and introduction. So what is direction sense? Direction sense is one's ability to identify and analyze directions. Now, I know you all know what a direction is, but I'll just repeat it again. Direction is a path along which someone or something can move. We have majorly 4 directions, and then we also have 4 sub-directions. So totally we have 4 main and 4 sub-directions. That is 8 named directions. The 4 main directions are north, south, east and west. And then we also have 4 sub-directions. The direction which lies exactly in between north and east is northeast. The direction which lies exactly in between north and west is northwest. Similarly, the direction which lies exactly in between south and west is southwest. And the direction which lies between south and east exactly is southeast. Now these are the 8 important directions that we all need to know. Also, along with this, there is one point I would like to tell you guys. Always, sun rises in the east and sun sets in the west. Now, when does sun rise? Sun rises in the morning. So, every time in the morning, you will find the sun in east direction. So every time in the morning you will find sun in the east direction. And then when does sun set? Sun sets in the evening. So every time during evenings we will find sun in the west direction. During mornings you will find the sun in the east direction, and during evenings you will find the sun in the west directions. This is one important point to remember. Now let us see some simple way to remember these directions. Now let us see a way to remember the north direction. North. The word north starts with N, right? So let us write N. This stroke like this, a slant stroke, and then in the end we write a stroke like this. So we are writing the last stroke like this. We are going from bottom to top in this direction, right? So always remember this direction will be north. Now let us see the same thing for east. How do we write east? How do we write the letter E? We write it like this, a stroke like this, and then 1, 2, and the last stroke will be going from left to right, this direction, right? So this is east, always. Now, when you know 2 directions, you can easily tell the remaining directions. What is the direction which is opposite to north? This. And what will it be? South. And what is the direction which is opposite to east? This direction. And what will it be? West. And again, finding the sub-directions will be very easy, because the direction which is exactly in middle of north and east is northeast. And the direction which is exactly to the middle of north and west is northwest. The direction which is exactly to the middle of south and west is southwest. And the direction which is exactly to the middle of south and east is southeast. In this way, if we know 2 directions, we can tell where the remaining directions are. I hope this is clear. Now that we have learned about a simple way to remember the directions, let us move on to another important topic called Pythagoras Theorem. Pythagoras Theorem states that for every right angle triangle, that is one of the angle is 90 degrees. Here it is between this angle is 90 degrees. For every right angle triangle with the lengths of its bases as A and B respectively, and the length of its hypotenuse is C, then the lengths A, B and C always adhere to the formula C square is equal to A square plus B square. That is, if here is the right angle, then the square of this length and the square of this length, the sum of these two will always be equal to the square of this length, right? This can also be realized visually. How? It is the area of the square formed by this particular side, and if you take the area of the square formed by this particular side, the sum of these two areas will be equal to the area of the square formed by this particular side, that is the hypotenuse side. So this concept is very important because we will be using this in almost every problem. Now, if this topic is clear, let us move on and try to solve an example problem. Now, I have taken a very easy example, but we'll be providing with you some practice problems. So, this is the question. A person starting from her home moves 4 kilometers towards east and then turns right and moves 3 kilometers. What is the minimum distance that should be covered by her to go back home? This is the question. So every time when a direction sense question comes up, the first thing we need to do is to draw the directions. So here we have the directions, the 4 major directions: north, south, west and east. Now it is given that initially the person is starting from her home. Let us represent the person with this triangle, okay, and this peak is the point. He's facing in this direction, she is facing this direction, and this is her home. Now it is told that she moves 4 kilometers towards east. Where is east? East is in this direction, right? See, east is here to the right side. So she moves 4 kilometers towards east. Now what is the next thing? Then turns right. So now the person is facing towards east. Now he turns right. Did you get it? He turns right. She turns right. So she is facing south. Now he turns right and moves 3 kilometers. So he'll move 3 kilometers like this. Now the question is, what is the minimum distance that should be covered by her to go back home? This is a very important point. Whenever someone asks you a minimum distance between 2 points, the minimum distance will be a straight line between the starting point and the ending point. Now the person is here. He wants to, and this is our starting point, and we want to find out the minimum distance. So the minimum distance will be a straight line from this point to this point. So this will be the shortest or minimum distance always. Now if you can notice, this looks like a right angle triangle where this is one side, this is one side, and here we have 90 degrees which is very clearly visible. So this will be our hypotenuse. So we will apply our previously learnt Pythagoras theorem. Now Pythagoras theorem says the square of this side will be equal to square of this side and square of this side. So square of this side is 4 into 4. Square of this side is 3 into 3. So 4 into 4 16 plus 3 into 3 9. So 25 is the sum of the square. This will be equal to the square of this side. But then we don't want the square, we want the length. So what will be the length? Length will be the square root of 25. That is 5 kilometers. So the minimum distance that should be covered by her is 5 kilometers. I hope this is clear. Now let us move on to our next topic, which is clockwise and anti-clockwise sense. Clockwise sense, as the name says, it is the sense in which the hands of a clock rotate. Now if this is a clock how do the hands of the clock rotate? They move from 12 to 1, then to 2, then to 3, and so on. They move in this direction, right? They move like this. So this particular sense of moving is called clockwise sense, right? Now let us see the anti-clockwise sense. Anti-clockwise sense, as the name suggests, it is anti to clockwise sense. So it is just the reverse of the clockwise sense. Now if this is the clock, if clockwise is moving like this, then anti-clockwise means it will move like this, in the reverse direction. It will be like this, right? Now let me show you both of them together. This is clockwise, and this is anti-clockwise, right? Clockwise is like this and anti-clockwise is like this. Now let us try to solve a problem based on anti-clockwise and clockwise sense. Now here is the question. A person is facing northwest. He turns 90 degrees in the clockwise direction and then 180 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction and then 90 degrees in the same direction. What direction is he facing now? Now they said initially he is facing the northwest direction. Let us first draw the directions. Now northwest is this side. So see, this red point is where he is facing. So the person is facing the northwest direction initially. And then he turns 90 degrees in the clockwise direction. So what is clockwise direction? Like this. So he should be moving 90 degrees in this direction, like this. Right? See here. He'll move 90 degrees like this. So now this red point will be here. He'll be moving like this. He'll be rotating like this. So after that, he'll be facing this direction. What is this direction now? According to our directions, it is northeast. Now after this part, he is facing the northeast direction. Now let us see what he does next. In the question he says, then he turns 180 degrees in anti-clockwise direction. Now what is anti-clockwise direction? Now clockwise is this, anti-clockwise is this. So he'll be moving like this. See, now he'll be moving like this, and 180 degrees na, so like a straight line like this. So once he turns 180 degrees, he'll be facing towards this direction. What is this direction according to our directions legend? It is southwest. So now till here he's facing southwest. Let us continue now. And then he turns another 90 degrees in the same direction. Till he was moving in anti-clockwise direction. So same direction in place. Again in the anti-clockwise direction only, the person will be turning another 90 degrees. So again another 90 degrees in anti-clockwise direction, he'll be moving to come here. So what is the question? He is asking which direction is he facing now. Which direction is he facing now? If you can compare it with this legend of the directions and this position, you will notice that he is facing the southeast direction. So the answer is southeast. If you found my explanation a bit fast, you can pause at places and you can listen it to again. I hope this is clear. Now let us move on to our next topic, which is the concept of shadows. Now we all get to see sun every day. It rises in the east and sets in the west. So in the morning you'll find sun in the east direction, and then sun slowly moves. Actually we move around the sun and the position of sun seems to change for us. So from morning to evening it moves from east direction to west direction, right? So the sun's position with respect to earth keeps changing constantly. So because of this change in its position, the direction of the shadow also changes. Now a shadow is formed when the sun's rays fall on a person and they obstruct the sun rays to some extent, and because of that obstruction the light rays do not fall on some area, and when they do not fall on that area, that leads to the formation of a dark region, and the dark region is called a shadow. Now if you can see, this man is standing over here and the sun rays are falling on him. Exactly according to his shape, the sun rays do not fall. I mean, the sun rays do not move in that particular area, that particular region. So as a result, you get a dark region of that man's shape on the ground. This particular thing is called a shadow. Now I have just given a small explanation. A shadow is a dark area or a shape produced by a body coming in between the rays of sunlight and a surface. Now here if you can see, this is the surface, the ground, and this, from here you get sunlight, and this object is obstructing the path of the sunlight. That is why we are getting a shadow. I hope this is clear. Now let us move on and discuss some basic rules. Now don't be scared looking at the number of points. These are all just conceptual. If you understand the concept, you need not remember anything. You can just imagine and do. Now shadow directions in the morning. Okay, sunrise. So we know from the previous part of the lecture that sun rises in the east. So during mornings, sun will be in the east direction. So when sun is in the east direction, it is very clear that the shadow will be in the west direction. See, sun is in the east. If there's any object here, sun rays will be opposed and they won't be falling in west direction. So we'll have a shadow in the west direction. So in the morning, always we'll have the shadow in the west direction. Right? So now if the person faces towards the sun, the shadow will be towards his back. Now when he's facing the sun, he's facing the east direction and the shadow is in the west direction. So when he's facing east, the shadow will be towards his back. Now let us see the second point. If the person is facing towards the south, when he's facing towards the south, imagine you are facing towards the south, then to your left hand side will be the east direction and to your right hand side will be the west direction. So we know that the shadow is in the west direction. So what is there on your west direction? Your right side, right? So the shadow will be towards his right. See, these are all just imagination points. You need not remember these. You just need to understand. Now if a person is facing the west direction, then the shadow will feel like it is in front of him, right? And then if the person is facing north, then for him his left side will be the west direction and the right side will be the east direction. Since the shadow is in the west side, we'll say the shadow will be towards his left. Now let us see the same thing for the evenings. Now sun sets in the west direction. So during evenings, sun will be present in the west direction. And then if sun is present in the west direction, the shadow will fall on the east direction, right? So that is only the first point. When the person is facing the sun, that is, he is facing the west direction, the shadow will be towards his back, that is the east direction. Now when the sun is facing the north direction, sun will be towards his left hand, so the shadow will be towards his right side. When the sun is facing east direction, he's showing his back to the sun's direction, right? So he'll find the shadow in front of him. Similar way, when the person is facing the south direction, then towards his right hand side he'll have the sun, that is the west direction, and towards his left hand side where he'll have the east direction where you have this shadow, right? These are some important points that are to be remembered. Now one more thing is, during noons the sun is not in the east direction or in the west direction. It is correctly on the top of our head. So when it is correctly on the top of our head, the sun rays fall vertically on our head. So there is no possibility for a shadow to be formed. So at noon, that is 12, you won't get any shadow. This is also one important point to be remembered. Now, let us try to solve a problem. This is also a simple problem. You can find out, we'll share some resources where you can find some practice problems. So, one morning, X and Y were talking to each other. Let us assume X to be the blue triangle and the red point is where he is facing. And let us assume Y to be the pink triangle and this red point is where he is facing. Now one morning, X and Y were talking to each other face to face at a crossing. If Y's shadow was exactly to the left of X, what direction was X facing? Now, if you see here, he said if Y's shadow was exactly to the left of X, someone's shadow is to the left of X. Okay, shadow is falling to the left of X, and since it is morning, sun is in the east direction. So when sun is in the east direction, shadow will be in the opposite, that is west direction. Now we know west direction we have the shadow, and then we know that it is lying to the left of X. So what is lying to the left of X? West. So to the left of X you have west direction, right? And then if left of X is west, then right of X is east, because west and east are opposite directions. Now if west and east are like this, north and south will be like this. So what direction is X facing? X is facing this direction, right? So he's facing the north direction. So this marks the end of this chapter. I hope you found this useful. Thank you.